Hi, and welcome to VFX Tutors. I'm Josh, and in this tutorial we're going to be continuing with our VFX core skills for beginners. So in our previous ones we've done some basic prep stuff and sort of went through our pipeline, and we sort of organized some of our data into our sort of folders. You don't have to follow it exactly. You can do it in your own way as long as it makes sense to you. There's no perfect way to do it. It's just whatever makes sense to you, because this is just for personal projects and stuff. So in this tutorial, we will go through transcoding our raw DNG footage into a usable sort of color space for our VFX pipeline. This is really useful so we get a nice matching color grade at the end. So when we render all our stuff out, it's all matching, and we put our grades on the end, and there's not anything looking a little bit weird. So it puts everything on sort of a level playing ground. And this is different for different types of footage. If you're just working with 8-bit footage and sRGB or raw footage or any sort of random footage you get off the internet, it can all be a little bit different. But we're going to go through the sort of method I use for my Blackmagic, and it's fairly simple, and it works pretty well if you've done all your data acquisition correctly. It just makes life a lot easier. But yeah, so we're going to go through and we're going to transcode our footage and some of our ref data. So yeah, let's get going. Cool. So in our previous tutorial, we organized all our data. I think I forgot to add some extra ones in there. So there should be another folder in there when you download it, and that'll be your light reference symbols. And I've added some extra data in here. It's the charts, and there's a cutout and a UHD, and I'll explain why it's like this. Cool. So for this tutorial, you will need to download DaVinci Resolve. It's free, so you don't have to pay for it. It's great for all things color grading, and you can use it for fusion, for comping as well. It does loads of stuff. It's great. I use it mostly for doing stuff like this, but it's only a tiny bit of what it can do. But I definitely recommend getting DaVinci Resolve. It's just really good software. So we're going to use this for transcoding our footage because we're using Blackmagic footage. I think only DaVinci Resolve keeps hold of the LUTs for it to transcode it correctly into a linear color space. I might be wrong. Let me know, but I'm pretty sure the best way to do it is doing it through Blackmagic DaVinci Resolve because it's just its native software. So if you just go to your files that you've downloaded, mine are going to be on my G drive, and you'll have the rushes here. And we don't really want to use that anymore because that's just our folder that we imported. We want to use our organized folder. So we've got our bird box, we've got our elements, we've got our BGO one, which will be our plate, and we've got our client, which we said, you can call it whatever you want. It's just the raw plate. We will only use this once for this transcoding part, then the ELO one for the light ref. So if I open it up, you should see that we've got this footage here. If we click on it, we can view it here, but it won't currently do anything until you can play through and have a look. And it's not a complicated shot. It's just like moving and simple, something that's really not going to take you very long, really. If you've done match move or layout or all that sort of stuff before, you should breeze through this. But it's simple, so everyone can get a good steady foundation. So the first thing we need to do is click and drag our image sequence over to our media pool, and it should now come in here, and you can see that it'll give us all the details from sort of the metadata on it, and we'll see that the type is 324 frames, 13 seconds, and the resolution is 4000 by 2160, which is a little bit large for what we can actually export out of the free DaVinci Resolve. The maximum is UHD, but it's very unlikely you're going to need more than UHD unless you're going crazy or you've got like a mega machine. So this is fine, but our problem is that if we sort of export this out as UHD, we're going to have some black bars here, which is not an issue if you plan on putting black bars there, but we can remove this just by setting up our project a little bit better. So I'm just going to go up to File and go to Project Settings. And you can set your timeline resolutions to 1080. It depends on what you want to render off. You can do it at 1080p if you want. It's absolutely fine. if you're rendering lots off, you might want to do it like that. If you've got a not so much of a powerful machine, you probably want to go for 1080. But I'm just going to set my timeline resolution to 3840 by 2060. So it's at the maximum resolution. And you can see nothing's changed, but now the next thing I need to go to my image scaling. And my input scaling is mismatched resolution files, which is basically because my resolution is 4000 by 2160. It's not 16 by 9. So if we scale full frame with a crop, this means it's basically going to crop some of the side off so it fills the frame. And this is not a big deal. You can leave it there, but it's probably still going to because our maximum is only 3840 by 2160, so we're going to either squeeze something or lose something. But I'm just going to click save. And I didn't do it. Why didn't I do it? Let's go for a crop. Okay, it's because we're in the media pool. Sorry. So if we go to edit, and if we drag that over into here, we can now see that it's cropped. And this is what we'll see. So you won't see it in the media pool. Oh, it's updated. That's the raw footage, and this is our timeline. So you can see the difference now. So I got a bit confused then, but so your timeline will show up in your media, so you can sort of compare it. You can see we're not really losing much there, and you can keep it if you really want those pixels on the side, but I'm not bothered. So the first thing that we want to do is just like we can have a look, and it's not going to win any Oscars or anything like that for best camera work, but we want to keep it simple for this. So, and it depends on how long you want to do. You don't have to do it this long. I just want to keep mine kind of short, so it's moving. And you can cut this to any length you want. There's no. If you want the whole thing, do the whole thing. If you don't want to do the whole thing or just want to do a short thing, that's fine. I'm just going to cut it to something similar. I can't remember what I did for the actual one, the first test, but this will just be, it'll be fairly similar. So I'm just going to look through. I'm just going to crop it, and I know it does something weird at the end here, so I don't really want that sort of rotation. So I'm just going to chop it off here. And we can see that this is like 10 seconds. So there's still going to be quite a lot of frames to render off. So we can play through it. And we can see it's pretty basic. There's nothing crazy going on here. It's a very simple camera shot. Very easy to track, but it's just so we can get it all working nicely for you. Cool. So now we've done our really basic editing. And you can do this for anything, really. But DaVinci Resolve's the best for me and this footage. So the next thing that we kind of want to also do is go back to our media pool. If we go back to onset lighting, I probably should have put that in the elements. And if I go to my light ref, you'll see another one. And you can see it's got our chrome balls, our Macbeth chart, and our grey ball. I have to say this grey ball isn't exactly photographic grey. It's as close as what I had with a colour match. But the most important thing for colour is your Macbeth chart. No one's, unless you don't have a Macbeth chart, people might rely on that to be 50% grey or photographic grey. But we've got this here as backup. So albeit this may not be the perfect shade of grey, we've got the complete toning of colours here in the Macbeth chart. So that's always good to know. If you've made your own chrome balls or grey balls, it's fine. If you've got HDRI, they're only there really for reference. Just always let your lighter know if it's not exactly 50% grey or photographic grey. So I'm going to drag this also into my media pool. Then go to edit. Where are we? There. Now I'm going to stick this on the end. And the reason why I do this is because there's no need for me to go back and forth, opening it up again and doing it again. Whereas I can sort of, this won't happen in like big production sort of things. I don't believe most of it's just sort of processed separately. But for my personal projects and stuff, I find it so much easier to keep everything relatively in the same place. So a lot of the time, once I've got my edit, because I'm not going to render anything further than that. Like once my plate's done, my plate's done. So I just usually stick this on the end of the plate and just adjust my timeline for when I bring it into Maya. And it just, for me, it keeps everything together. So we've just stuck 2 frames in on the end. And that's got our Macbeth chart and balls. And one other thing that I also like to do, you don't necessarily have to do this either. Like, this is just, like I say, this is not always what they do. They do it slightly different in every other places. Like, this is how I do it, and it keeps it simple for me. So I'm going to go back to my media, and I'm going to go to my brushes, extra charts, and I've got my Macbeth chart X-Rite UHD EXR. And there's a reason why I put this is why it's UHD, is so I can stick it on the end as well. Because we've got to transcode all our footage, and currently this is already in it. We can see that this is already in a linear color space. So all the ones that I've given you before are in linear color space. But it's just kind of, for me, I like to make sure that whatever I'm comparing my colors against, I still want that to sort of be sort of effectively checked. Like it's my own sanity check. So I know these are perfect colors. They're from the website and it's been linearized. So I'm just going to do the same again. I'm just going to put a couple frames in on the end, or however many that is. Cool. So this might sound a bit complicated, or it might not be making sense at the moment, but we're only using this for reference. So, and it just saves me having to do different files, so I can keep it all together. And it's just, for me, it's tidier. You can do it separately. But yeah, maybe it's just another method you've never tried before, so it's worth giving it a go. So we've done we can just play through it and see what it looks like. And it's pretty simple. It's not anything amazing. Plays for our shot. We've got our reference balls and color chart at the end. Then we've got our Macbeth chart, which we know that these are the perfect Macbeth chart color matches from their website. It's just in a linear. It was just easier for me to keep it in linear for other projects. But I kind of figured that this might be an easier way for me. So I know I'm probably blabbering on a bit. So let's try and get through this without me sending you to sleep. So pretty much we just need to go to color. And this is where our color is going to change quite a bit. Because let's can I pull this down? I don't think I can pull this down. I can somewhere. I can't find it. I swear there used to be a bar that you could pull down, but let's not worry about it. Cool, so we're now in our color tab, and you see we've got our plate here, and we've got this little node graph here. Ooh. This is our plate that we've brought in. So what we want to do first is actually start with our Macbeth chart and chrome balls. And it's entirely up to you if you want to keep it all this sort of color. And what I'm going to do, I'm just going to do it like a you might like this color and you might not want to do this. It's entirely up to you, but I'm going to do like a neutral grade on this. So at the end, it can be regraded to however you like. And the way I like to do this, what I'll do, I'm going to go to my node tab here. And before I do anything, actually, I sometimes forget to do this. So you want to go to your camera raw settings. And you don't need to just leave this. And if you want to go down to your clip. So we're going to decode this color space into a different color science, and it doesn't matter so much as long as you make sure that you remember which one you've done it in, and it's pretty much whatever you like. I'm going to do it in Gen 4 just because I prefer it, and I'm pretty much going to leave everything as standard. So Black Magic Design, because that's the color space it's currently in, and the gamma, it was filmed in Black Magic Design 4K. And I'm just going to select Highlight Recovery on, because if we look here in our charts, I've just completely forgot in our video scopes, we can see that we've got basically all our color ranges, and you can see at the top we've probably got some clipping here, which is probably these bits all the way in the back where the sunlight's peeping through, and luckily we shot it in RAW, so we can actually bring back some of our highlight recovery, and it gives us a little bit more. It does exactly what it says, basically. So I'm not going to change any of this at all now. I'm just going to leave it. I know in my previous one I just kind of said, you guys can just have fun and do whatever. But this time we're going to do like a neutral grade. So we've set up our initial sort of grade node. So I'm just going to right click and go to add node, and I'm going to add a serial node. So this is now after it. Ooh. Cool, because we want to do all our changes on the second one, so we can copy it across and put it on all the others. So the reason why we've got this chart is so we can do like a neutral grade. So the easiest way to do this is go to your color match, and here you have an ink dropper, and you can change it to color chart. So this is where you need to make sure that you've got the right branded one as well, because there are, even though there's X-Rite ones, you'll have different types of X-Rite ones, and you could be using a data color one, and I'll show you how to change it. So if you're using the color checker, you'll notice that they've got these little crosses. Those are pretty much designed to line up with these, so you can get a perfect sort of sample from it. So hopefully you've shot your Macbeth chart nice and clear, and you can line these up, and pretty much every time they'll match up really nicely. So this is I know it's an X-Rite Classic, but you can just about see it here, and it's good to know if you're using the X-Rite Classic, because you need to actually make sure you're either on the X-Rite color. If I leave it on the Legacy, see how they slightly change? And I'm just going to make sure that I always put it on X-Rite Color Checker Classic. And I might be wrong there, might have to use the Legacy, but as long as I make sure that I use the same one every time, there shouldn't be any problems. So the next thing I need to go is to my source gamma, and I know it's not Rec 709 because I shot it on my Black Magic Design 4K film, and that's the color space that I filmed it in. And now this is where it gets a bit interesting. So I want my target gamma to be linear, so when we render all our stuff off, and it all matches basically. I'm not going to go into sort of linear color science and stuff like that, because it's a whole big thing. I couldn't do it justice by explaining it. It's just a good thing to do basically. And if you want to know more, I can probably dig a little bit deeper, but I'm sure there's probably other people that have a much better understanding. So now our target color space, and you'll see that we've got loads, absolutely loads, and you're probably like, which one do we pick? So pretty much these days, everything is in aces, because it's like a universal color space, where everyone can sort of see the same thing, so there's not getting mix matched. And the same again, I'm not going to go into aces because I'll put some links in the description for some people that can explain it way better than I can. But it's pretty much, that's how everything's done. Cool, so we've done that. So now if you just select match, everything goes dark. And that's absolutely fine because we've just linearized it and we've changed it. We've transcoded it to a linear color space in ACES. And you can double check that it's not gone crazy by right click and add LUT. So LUT is kind of the thing that you're going to do right at the end with your color grade. But we can just do a quick check now. So if I go to VFX, if I go LUT, go all the way down to the bottom, then I can go to linear to Blackmagic Film 4K, and it should put it back in the exact same color space, which it has. It's going to be different to that because that's in a different gen. But let's now remove that LUT because we actually don't want that on there. Cool. So I'm going to right click. No, I'm not. I'm going to go edit, copy, or you can go Control C. And then I'm going to go back. And because we don't have a color chart in here, I'm going to go through the exact same steps again. So the first thing I do is select here, change the clip. And it's really important that you do the exact same settings because its color space is a crazy big thing. And I can't explain it, but yeah, it's very important that you don't change things in between. So that was an awful explanation of it, but as long as we keep everything the same, it'll all work. That's all that needs to matter. Cool. So we've just changed it to clip. We're in Gen 4. You can do it in Gen 1, but I've done the first one in Gen 4, and I prefer it. Blackmagic Design Film, which is the same. Cool. So now if we right click and add a serial node, we can Control V or edit, paste, and that'll paste all our details on from this one. So now we can see that they are both pretty much exactly the same. You can see we've not lost any highlight. Well, slight clipping here, but I'm not too bothered because it's very small amounts and that's not our focus. Cool, so we've now done our footage and our reference. So now you're probably wondering why I've got this in here. Because I want to do this, because I've done this in a linear color space before, but I want to make sure that it's all matching. So I'm going to leave this as it is. I'm going to right click, add node, add a serial. And this is like, people could probably say this is unnecessary, but it's kind of my own sanity check to make sure that whatever because this is what I'm going to be rendering this. So I want to know that even though I know this is right, this is kind of my final sort of sanity check to make sure it's all in the right color space and it's all sort of matching. Because when I render stuff, I want this Macbeth chart to match this Macbeth chart. So yeah, and it's just one of those things. It's just what I do. Not necessarily you have to do this, but it's just like a sanity check. So obviously it's not a camera raw, it's already a linear EXR. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to go to my source gamma, and I know it's a linear, and my target gamma, I want it still in linear, so this is not going to change, and then I want it in ACES. So we're basically telling this is already in a linear color space, and we want to keep it in linear color space, and we're going to basically match grade this and probably change slightly. Cool. And you can see everything's very slightly changed, and we can compare between the two. Oh, see, this is why you also need to, let's unmatch that. And to see if you notice what I did wrong before I tell you. Which is kind of annoying because if you don't, So it's still on X-Rite Legacy, so I want to make sure that I change this to Classic. Because I did the previous one on Classic. We need to make sure that we keep everything the same. Where's linear gone? There we go. And we'll put this in Aces. Match. Cool. So now we've got, so if we actually zoom in on this, our color chart should be very, not that I'll be able to do that, it'll just be a, you can sort of see they're very close, sort of. You can turn that off. Cool, and for the sort of color, I think we're pretty much done. So now we just need to go to deliver. So this is fairly simple. I like to talk through everything, so sorry if you already know this and you can just go straight past it. So the first thing that I'm going to do, I am going to call this my shot name underscore BG01 V01, and make sure you put a dot at the end of it as well. And what we do, we'll go to browse. Elements, and we've got our BG01. So we're going to save our BG01. Cool. So we want our format. We don't want QuickTime. We want to put these out as EXRs. And we want to leave pretty much all that as it is. We go to advanced settings. And what we can do, we can go to our Aces AP1. Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm pretty sure it's AP1, but this is just a tag to tell when we bring it into other software that, hey, this is, it's like putting it on the metadata, I believe. And ACC, I believe. Cool. So what we're going to do, we're going to force debayer to highest quality, force sizing to highest quality as well. And I'll be honest, I don't know exactly what all of these do, but I'm sure people that are way more versed in DaVinci could tell me. I just know that these do sometimes help quite a bit. Cool, so we'll just go to our file here on the tab here, and we don't need to change anything because we've already typed it in, but we do need to change our digits to 4. Then each clip starts at frame 1001. This is just the industry standard, just so you have plenty of frames beforehand. Cool, so we can look through and check all our settings. We don't have to change too much. Don't have any audio, so that's fine. And that is pretty much it. All we have to do now is select Add to Render Queue, and it will bring it up here. And if you select Render All, it will either just render. But if you didn't change your timeline, it will ask you to change it. But it's all fine. So that's now going to render it all if in a linear color space for Aces. And we'll briefly talk about Aces. If you want to know more about it, I can send you a link to someone that can explain it way better. But it shouldn't take too long, depending on your computer or what resolution. If you decided to do it at 1080, it's probably done ages ago. Cool, and that's completed. So what we can do now is we can check this. We can open up and have a look and see if it's all looking all right. So just going to go back to my media. And just close it down, go to Bird Box, Elements, BG01. We can see now we've got our rendered off footage. So we've got our BG01. If I go to Edit, let's pull this across. And this is our shots now. So we can see this is our original. No, that's not our, that's what we see up here. So I'm just going to go to my color. So we can scrub through and we can see all our highlights. Most of it's been recovered from our highlight recovery. Then we have our Macbeth chart at the end. So now if I right click on this, so imagine we're at the end, we've rendered everything done, rendered everything and then we're all done. You would have your LUT. You don't have to use this one. You can use any one that you get off the internet, whatever you fancy basically. You can grade it to whatever you want basically. There's no, whatever you think looks nice. And I'm just going to go to linear to Blackmagic film to bring it back to what it was originally. And you can see now we've got that nice, we've brought it back to that sort of nice Blackmagic color space. But like I said, this is, you don't have to do that. You can probably go to linear to Rec 709 and it changes slightly. It's pretty much what, once you've done it all, you can do it to whatever you want. And you got sRGB, it's a little bit washed out. We can try some linear to Arilog C and it'll be really washed out. But yeah, it's pretty much done. So yeah, our next step, now we've transcoded it, we can, if you wanted to do an edit rough, we can just render it off, but we don't need to. So our next step would be start going through the data acquisition side. So now what we'll do, we'll start going through processing, probably the photogrammetry, because it will take the longest. So yeah, I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial and it's been insightful for you and you've learned something. Hit that like button and subscribe for more like this.